Good evening. It's Thursday, just past 9 o'clock, and that can mean only one thing. It is time to hit the road south, and that is the road south on Southbound. We are Southbound, and I'll stop saying Southbound eventually, but I'm just plugging home the promotions shamelessly. Like I said before, we do not sell out. We do not sell out. If there's any advertisers watching, especially in this day and age, we do not sell out. I'll even take political parties, just not Reform. But let's not get political. This is a sports podcast, believe it or not. Last week we talked about rage bait and clickbait, and it was great fun. Ed throwing in some great comparisons and AI tweets, and me and Nathan just had a good laugh. Joining us tonight, gentlemen, is a man who heralds from the Miami Dolphins fan base. Now, if you told me two things about Miami, that would be even their own quarterback can't spell his own name, mainly because he can't remember it because of all the concussions. And that is the Indianapolis Colts own that stadium, and it was home. It was home to the best halftime show ever. Dave, thanks for joining us tonight on Southbound. How's it going?
You're welcome, mate. It's good. It's a good job you haven't backstage for that concussion joke. Start off as you mean to do one.
Just to start then, Dave's very nicely let me go and have 5 minutes to talk about the Indiana Pacers, who are trailing currently 3-2 to the greatest ever NBA team ever in the history of NBA, OKC, or sort of been told by the internet. 3-2 in the finals. Game 6 is tonight at 01:30 GMT. Anyone staying up? Probably not. Hopefully the Pacers can force a Game 7. But by tomorrow, we will know whether there is a Game 7 or OKC will be well-deserved champions. Only joking, they would have cheated and bought all the rest because everything's rigged nowadays. So let's get into it. Dave, welcome to the show. You met me, you've met Ed, you've now met Nathan backstage. So let's start with the very open, what was it? The schedule release video. One,
yeah,
I'm not a fan of the schedule release thing. I don't think we need it, but I found it funny. Tyreek Hill found it funny. Did Miami find it funny?
Yeah, I think most fans took it. I mean, Tyreek Hill is not the most popular man in Miami anyway at the moment, so I don't think any fans minded the joke at his expense. And yeah, as you say, he tweeted afterwards saying he found it funny. I think, to be fair, his wasn't even the worst one in there, but yeah, it was funny. The whole thing was amazing, to be fair.
Yeah, it helps when you just completely overlook what office rights you have to use, you know, what sponsorships you actually do deals with, and then you post it anyway, because why not?
Yeah, how long was that actually up for? It was like 12 hours or something, wasn't it? With that.
I don't even think it was that.
Yeah,
I think it was
I don't know how it got, like, I'm assuming it didn't get signed off.
No, the one thing Chris Ballard definitely needed at that time was an intern fucking up. But so, shall we get into some football talk then? Some proper football talk, because we do play each other week 1. Season opener. It's in Miami, or is it Lucas Oil? Lucas Oil. So, Dave, you told me a little bit before we came online, and I'll let the boys jump in with a question after this, but how's the general vibe in Miami? From what you were saying, you could just copy and paste it and change the name to Colts?
Yeah, it sounds like it. It's not massively positive at the moment. I think the fans are a little bit disappointed after the last couple of years. They've got some concerns. Most of them are probably legitimate. I think we've got quite a wide range of possibilities that could happen this season. I still believe our ceiling is pretty high, but I also think our floor is pretty low. So it could go either way. And then it does seem like the fans seem more on the worried side than the excited side right now.
Ed, Nathan, do you have any questions for Dave?
Yeah, I've got one. I'm just interested to hear. Obviously, from the outside looking in, you know, we all follow our own team's dramas, and we all know that the Colts generate enough to keep us very occupied that we haven't really got time to look at everybody else. I'm just interested to hear your views on. You mentioned at the start there about Tyreek Hill not being the most popular with Dolphins, and there was a little bit towards the end of last year, wasn't there? Did he tap out of a game, or he kind of said he didn't fancy it? Or I just wonder if you give us a little bit of sort of context on that.
Yes, it's a bit of an odd timeline. I'm pretty sure he did tap out at the end of the game. It was at the point when the game was gone and we weren't making the playoffs, but it's obviously still not good. And then in his press conference afterwards, when he's a bit heated, he says he's leaving, he's out of here, he doesn't like it anymore. And then he backtracks, and I think it was with Kay Adams at the draft when he said, "Oh, I didn't mean it, I love it here, I want to stay, blah, blah, blah." So he's fully backtracked. Fans at the time were, let's get rid of him. And as more time passes and he keeps his head down, I think it's looking more likely he will be here next year than he won't. I think there's no doubt that last year there was a bit of a culture problem, and they're giving it all the talk that they're making it better this year. I mean, they could just be saying that. There's absolutely no proof. But I think they're getting rid of Jalen Ramsey on that basis.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's a deliberate decision or they just weren't getting the interest, but maybe it would be too much to go to Ramsey and Hill just for the dead cap and losing possibly two of our best players. So as he's so expensive, maybe they're just hoping he gets his act together. And if he plays well, then he's still a very good player. And if he just doesn't draw shit, then great.
Yeah. I suppose it gets to that point with time. I mean, what is he? Must be pushing 30 if he's not already at the age 30.
Yeah, I think he's 30, yeah.
And I suppose he's getting to that stage where is his shit kind of worth the production? Do you know what I mean? There gets that tipping point, doesn't there, with all players where they have a lot of maybe, I don't want to say baggage because that's not necessarily fair on the guy, but where they come with a lot of
kids.
Yeah, in this case, yeah. But where maybe they could be deemed as high maintenance, shall we say? Is the production on the field worth it? From the outside looking in, anyway, I would say another year of Tyreek Hill has got to be a positive for his production on the field. Anyway, if you can get him,
yeah, I hope so. So I don't know if you guys saw, he actually ran a competitive 100-meter race a few days ago.
I did see this, yeah.
And he ran a 10.15, like a proper legitimate time in a race, which is unbelievable, especially for like a 30-year-old. That is just unbelievable. And he was supposed to race Noah Lyles, because they've been giving each other shit on Twitter for months in some like Times Square spectacle. And Noah Lyles pulled out after he did that for personal reasons. And I'm pretty sure the personal reason was not wanting to be embarrassed to lose to Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's still got his pace, even at his age. And last season, he did play through a wrist injury. He basically broke it pre-season and didn't have the surgery because it would have knocked him out for half the season plus. So, again, not making excuses. He's clearly very, very high maintenance. But he's still got his pace. And if he can catch this year, because actually last year he had a lot of drops, which is very costly. So if he can still run fast and he can catch this year, then he's still potential to be a great player.
Okay.
What's up, Dave? I've got two questions for you. One is really quick. The other maybe a little bit longer. So which one do you want to start with?
Let's do the quick one. Let's get it out of the way.
Okay. So I'm a big fantasy guy. Have been, for maybe the last 8 years. Jalen Waddle, the enigma of NFL wide receivers. So much promise when he entered the league, arguably still in his career. I feel like if that guy could stay healthy, you'd have like one of the biggest studs in the league. Do you agree?
100%. Absolutely love Jalen Waddle. All the fans love Jalen Waddle. So if you do dynasty leagues, pick him up because he's got 1A potential. He's just sharing reps with Tyreek Hill, who will be gone in 1 year, probably 2 max. And then he will be a top end receiver one. And he has much better chemistry with Tua than Tyreek Hill does. He does I'm sure we'll come on to it, but Tua's strength is the mid throws, the timing, the anticipatory stuff. And that's what him and Waddle link up with. And then his yak with his pace is absolutely fantastic. He is a wicked player. He's really humble. He's really down to earth. He's popular. I actually want him to be a team captain this year, not Hill, as both like a reward for him and a message for Hill and just an overall like culture thing for the team. So obviously I'm biased, but massively pro Waddle. Love him.
No, I actually have Waddle in 2 dynasty leagues. So right. My second question, maybe a little bit longer, and 2 parts. So I feel like Miami league-wide especially, have the rep right now of it gets cold and you just disappear, right? That's not what I'm saying. That's what I think America says, right? Do you think that, I guess, A, do you think that's true? And B, do you think this offense could be more efficient without Mike McDaniels?
Okay, so first part, there's an element of truth in it, for sure. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. It's natural for a team that plays in a hot climate to not be as good in a cold climate. That's not unreasonable, and it would apply to all the teams in the other way around. It's one of those, and I was talking to Harrison before, like, it's one of those narratives that seems to have picked up and now gets exaggerated, like it's out there now. So anytime we lose a match, you'll be like, oh, can't play in the cold.
Yeah.
When actually the history is probably not that bad. But if you look at some of the examples, so there's one really bad example. We lost to the Titans when we were at the end of a really good season in 23, and we blew it at the end. And that was not really cold, but it was cold. But then we had the playoff match against Chiefs when it was like -1 million. I don't feel like you can hold that against us because nobody could play in that. Like, that was just insane. But there have been some matches, and we have lost more than we probably should have done. But I don't think it's like any match below 40 degrees write us off. I don't think it's that bad. But it's a narrative that's out there, and the only way we'll stop it is by winning some cold games. And we do usually have those opportunities. Being in the division, with all three of our division rivals have cold home games in November and December. So I'm not going to lie, when the schedule release comes out, the first thing I look at is the first 4 games, do we have any hot home advantage? And then the last 4 to 6 games, do we have any cold matches? So it's clearly in my head as well. But I just don't think it's like quite as bad as people make out.
Yeah.
So then the second question about McDaniel. Again, there's probably an element of truth in it. The one thing, and I don't want to make excuses, we have been really badly injury hit the last couple of years.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
We're just a little bit screwed. So that obviously makes it worse. And then it combines with McDaniel. Sometimes I think he tries to be too clever. I think he's a really good play designer. I don't think he's a good play caller.
Yeah, and do you know what?
I would happily let him pass the play calling to someone else to choose from his really clever designs that he's done midweek.
Yeah, I think that's because let's not deny it. I think he's on the hot seat this year, right? It's playoffs or bust for Mike this year. And I honestly think if he gets fired from Miami, 31 team, let's say 28 teams probably picking the phone up, to inquire to see if he wants to come be the OC. The guy is clearly a mastermind at offensive play calling. And it's a shame because I agree with your injury comment. And, there's times when Tua's healthy and the offense is healthy where you're like a joy to watch, a genuine joy to watch. And then when the injuries come, his system just falls apart entirely. It's interesting to get your opinion on that. So thank you.
Yeah, no, agreed. And for example, last year it was actually quite underrated, but we lost our right tackle Austin Jackson about halfway through the season. And even though we had Twan Armstead on the other side, who's amazing, the run game actually went through Jackson and then it stopped. And then with regards to McDaniel, first 2 years, he brought in something innovative and it started off the season really well and it slowly caught up with us and they figured out how to stop it. So the first year, it was all the kind of the movement at the line of scrimmage, getting people moving before we snap it and then they go. Second year was like the screens and the playing it out to the sides. But then third year, we didn't have any new ideas, so we didn't have that initial bump. And they pretty much knew how to. And then we lost our running down through the middle, and then we had to do even more screens and out to the outside. So I'm hoping he's dialing up some new ideas to, be a bit more original this season.
Yeah, nice. He's a great coach, and you kind of for the love of the game, you want good coaches to be succeeding, right? As opposed to not.
It might be one of those, as you say, where he gets sacked and either gets a top OC job or maybe gets another head coach job, and then he'll learn his lessons from what he did wrong with Miami, and then be a great head coach somewhere else. And we would have just been a team that was one job too soon for him potentially.
I I'd say as well from the outside looking, he looks like the kind of coach you want to play for as well. Like he's got that kind of personality, hasn't he? That people want to get behind. You know, I know some of the sound bites and stuff are sort of media gold, but he does seem like a genuinely top bloke.
He does, and I think again, there's probably two elements to that. I think one element is some NFL players really like to be ridden hard and just like not treated badly, but absolutely fucking run into the ground, and they kind of respond to that. And that's what Brian Flores did before, but I think that's a minority. So what we found when we got rid of Flores and went to the exact opposite with McDaniel was most players were happy, but actually a couple were like, I can't respond to this joke, or I don't want him to be nice to me. I don't have that self-motivation. So we had to have a little bit of a turnaround there. But I also think he's borderline too soft, and that's why we had some culture issues last year, and that's why some of the senior players are talking a bit more this year. I think that's why we're getting rid of Ramsey, just to get that balance right, because it does put more onus on the players. And I think overall the coaching spectrum is moving that way, but I think he's still quite ahead of the curve in terms of just how much it's player driven and he's out there designing plays, but he's not kind of yelling at them or anything like that.
I just want to come in and link it back to, sorry Harrison, link it back to the AFC South for 1 second. Like, I'm a big fan of Jalen Ramsey. The guy's an absolute dog. He's been in, an insane corner his whole career. But that stunt he pulled in Jacksonville when he turned up with the van full of money and stuff, I was like, I never want this guy in the coach's locker room. He can be as good as he wants, but we didn't see Darrell Revis doing that, and for Jalen to do that, I was like, okay, the game's moving on now, and I do not want to see that in Lucas Oil ever. So he is definitely someone I imagine is toxic. So I think you'll be better off when you lose him,
In theory, although our secondary is, even with him, the weakest part of our team. So he goes, we are a secondary of nobodies, which, going back to my earlier point, is what the fan base is most worried about. But I would say the hope there is Anthony Weaver, our DC, I think is amazing. And we've got a great D-line. So I'm hoping that he can work enough with the secondary to then make it overall still a good defence.
I've got to say, sorry, jumping, because obviously I was looking at the roster before we and depth chart before we came on tonight. Not being an aficionado with your entire Miami Dolphins depth chart, I must be honest with you right there. But I love the fact that there is a player on there, Storm Duck.
Storm Duck, yes. I believe he was undrafted last year, and he's going to be playing. And that's the point. Undrafted a year ago, he'll probably start. But he's got a great name.
I'm all in on Storm Duck. I'm fully vested and locked in now on what kind of year Storm Duck is going to have, because that is the best name I think I've ever seen. That is fantastic.
Yep, early fan favourite, that's for sure. Regardless of how rubbish he was.
Without doubt.
So, Dave, to me, it seems like, and you can tell me if I'm completely wrong or this is a fair assessment, but here in Indianapolis, we've had our fair share of elite coaching, good coaching, and crap coaching. But to me, Mike McDaniels, he seems like a great coach, but a below par manager. Now, to maybe contextualize it a bit, Frank Reich, an amazing manager, but his coaching was pretty crap. I tell you, when it's 3rd and 10 and you run a 19th screen, or you run it straight up the middle with JT on 2nd and 19, it gets a bit boring and a bit like, oh God. But like the locker room, community, Colts off the field, basically, phenomenal. And I sort of get the idea that Mike McDaniels is the complete opposite, where on the field, amazing. Like, we're talking, he's up there with play designs with Shane Steichen, who is a very clever play designer when he wants to be. But off the field, he seems to, I don't know, it just, maybe it's just because like you're different in the media. You look at, oh God, I forgot the name of the Eagles head coach, even though he's Nick Sirianni. You look at Nick Sirianni, he's horrendous in front of the cameras, but behind him, I don't know. Is that right? Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, Yeah, I think it's fair. I think, yeah, it's probably slightly near in the middle on each end. So, like, the game stuff, the coaching, as I say, he needs to be a better play caller. So he's not perfect, but he's certainly got the plays drawn up. But in game, he's not perfect. And then the managing side with the team, he's got his own way, and some players definitely respond and it brings the best out of them. But I think what he needs to work on is the players that don't naturally reflect that best. He still needs to work with them, and maybe he needs to change himself slightly to get the best out of those players potentially. But as we say, he's been a head coach for 3 years. We've been in the playoffs in 2 of them. He's got a good record overall.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier he's playoffs or bust. I think there might be a scenario if we go 9-8 with a couple more injuries and we've got excuses. The GM might be gone, but maybe he gets another shot just if they still believe in him. I'm not sure. That would probably be worst case scenario. You'd probably either want to make the playoffs or fully bust, so we've got an easy decision. But yeah, he's certainly got a lot of praise about him, and I'm still massively in favour of him. But I will say, I presume you guys have seen clips of him doing interviews and stuff. I can't listen to him. I have to wait and read the beat reporters because he just takes so long, and it's funny what he says, and I enjoy reading the quotes of him. But I'm not sitting there and watching this. I'll just catch it later because it takes so long. But overall, yeah, a lot of potential and still pretty good.
Yeah. And my last question before we get onto the power rankings, unless the guys have any more. Your quarterback tour. Coming out the draft, I love this guy. I've got to say I'm a big college casual. I know fuck all about college football apart from what colour Indiana play in and the top prospects. So I could be massively wrong, but he seemed like I really liked him coming out of college. Was it the same year as Trevor Lawrence?
Year before. Same year as Herbert.
That's it. Same year as Herbert. I had him pegged out of my completely limited knowledge to be better than Justin Herbert, and got laughed out the room. Yeah. Now, I think Tua, when he does remember where he is and he's not Johnny Concussion, is a fantastic quarterback. Am I wrong?
Absolutely not. He's a fantastic quarterback. He needs to stop doing stupid shit like tackling with his head first, and then he is a very good quarterback.
Go on.
So I'm even less than college casual, and that was also actually kind of the time I was properly getting into the Dolphins. I've not been a fan for a long time. But obviously came with all the hype and fine. So my journey has started with him, so I kind of feel slightly linked, if that makes sense. But I think he's great.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where kind of maybe linked to what you guys were talking about last week by the sounds of it. The haters are a lot louder than the supporters. And I don't know if he was at college, but he's always been really divisive, and I don't know why. And then the haters have started chirping up. So now the defenders have to get even louder to get their voices heard. And it's just become this battle, and I don't really know why. But I feel like every narrative that comes up against him, he kind of fixes the year after. So it's like, he's got a noodle arm, and then 2022 he was throwing bombs all over the place. I'm not saying he's got a big arm, but he doesn't have a noodle arm. And then there is something else in 24 that he fixed, and now it's the concussions, and he just needs to not get concussed this year, for God's sake. But he is a good quarterback. I firmly believe that.
If it makes you feel any better, Dave, my Colts quarterback journey started with Andrew Luck and is now with Riley Leonard, so things can change pretty quick. I mean, Ed, Nathan, do you have any more questions for Dave?
Go on, Ed.
No, go on, Nathan. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I want to ask is we've been this podcast for a short time. We run a different podcast per year, kind of rebranding, and we've always tried to advocate for player health, and more importantly, men's mental health too.
Yeah.
How many more concussions is too many?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. again, I feel like this is another one of the narratives, and it annoys me when he gets interest. I feel like people fake care to try and get him to retire. People be like, "Oh, we should definitely retire now." They don't know anything about concussions either. They just want to like show that they care. But Tua's never contemplated it, at least not publicly, and I don't believe him. I don't believe he has. I do believe him. He says he's spoken to all the doctors. They say it's fine. So he had one really bad one and 2 medium ones. He's actually just random. So he's also the same draft class as Joe Burrow. He's played more games than Burrow in his career. So like, it's not like he's always missing. I know Burrow missed basically a whole year with his ACL, but like it's not been that bad. He played every single game in 2023. So he did bad concussion in 22 and got a little one at the end. He then played every game in 2023, had a great season. And then last year he got another medium one in week 2 and then hurt his hip at the end. So he played about half the season and he went 6-3 just for reference. Like in a terrible season, his games were fine. So yeah, if the doctor's telling me he should keep playing, he's a competitor. So what he's done all his life, like I was never concerned in any of those concussions that he'd retire.
Yeah,
I mean, if he keeps getting some, there's obviously got to be a point, but I don't really think it's on the horizon, to be honest.
I just think to help sort of contextualize where we see it is at the end of this season, you know, we as Colts fans, we heard Anthony Richardson talking about how he couldn't even walk and he had to crawl around his house to ring his assistant. And I was at the point, if it's that bad, just hang up the boots. Like, it's not worth it. If you are 21 years old and you can't walk, you look at your health. And I've made a couple of joints obviously about to it, and I think that's fine up to a point, but it is, you know, this is a big question. We can maybe come back at the end of the season and look at what's gone on about player health and stuff, but it is a bit like, stop tackling your head, dude. Just slide.
Yeah, and he knows that, and he talks about that, and he knows, he knows he can't really scramble. Although actually, he's low-key okay at scrambling. He's just not allowed to do it anymore.
He's no Daniel Jones.
He actually got.
He's no Daniel Jones.
He's no Daniel Jones, that's for sure. Everyone laughed at him. He actually did jiu-jitsu before 2023 season when he played the full season, and he did notice a difference. He learned how to fall, and everyone laughs. But actually, you read up on it, and about like half the NFL do it. It's just again, Tua haters being like, "Oh, he's doing jiu-jitsu," laughing at him. But that made a difference. And 2023, Tua was pretty chubby, and again, it worked out pretty well. Then he obviously played a full season, got confident, slimmed down for 2024. Might be coincidence, might not be. 2 concussions, doing stupid shit. So hopefully this year we want a chubby Tua who doesn't scramble, because he stands in the pocket and he passes, will be absolutely fine. He plays 17 games, will make the playoffs. I actually don't have any doubts about that. Yeah. Anything else, then who knows? Anything could happen.
I've heard that from a couple of Dolphins fans actually say exactly that if Tua stays on the pitch or on the field, that the Dolphins will go to the playoffs this season. I say it's not so much a question, it's more a statement. I think that's really interesting, the comment you made there about the fact that he's played more games than Joe Burrow, because I don't hear anybody ever talking about Joe Burrow staying healthy and can he get on the field. I know Joe Burrow's injuries have been slightly different. Like you say, he'd done the ACL and then he'd done his wrist a couple of years ago. Or was it last year? I can't remember now. But they were sort of big, significant injuries. But before we came on to Showtime, one of my big questions around the Dolphins is, can Tua stay? Can he stay on the field? Because he is such a big difference to your team. But nobody's asking that question about the Bengals going into this year. Can Joe Burrow stay healthy? And yet Tua has played more games. I think that's a really interesting point. And that just shows, just going back to what we said about narratives, that Tua is sort of this injury-prone player, yet actually maybe that is more of a narrative.
Yeah, and I also think, and this is a slight tangent, that the term injury-prone is thrown around way too much. Like if someone pulls a hamstring, gets back, and then breaks their wrist, that's unrelated. They're not injury-prone. That's just 2 bits of bad luck. If they pull their hamstring every time they're on, or like Christian Watson, for example, with the Packers, his legs are fucked. Fine, he's injury-prone. But like different injuries, it's just a term that I think is thrown around way too much. And I don't know for sure, but I don't think Tua is any more likely to get a concussion now than he was before. The reason we overprotect him when he has them and we keep him out for longer is because you do have a higher chance straight after, and it's a higher chance of it being a bad one. Yeah. So that's why, even though he says he's healthy, and I actually think he gets a bit annoyed, we hold him out for 6 games, roughly, whatever. But then after that, I don't think there's actually any increased chances. So He just has to not, as I said many times, do stupid shit.
And just finally, before we go into power rankings, I've got one last question for everyone, and I'll start with our guest, Dave. If you could take one player from the Indianapolis Colts current roster and plug him into Miami, who would you take and why?
Really testing me here. I'll half answer and I'll let you guys completely answer. Who is your best secondary player? we'll take him. Corner or safety, whoever's best, we'll take them.
It's either Tre'Davious Ward or Cam Bynum.
Neither of whom have played a snap for us yet.
that wasn't quite as positive as I was hoping then. Yeah, but that's our weak spot. That's what we need help with. I mean, maybe Pittman as our receiver 3. Actually, Josh Downs is more of a really good kind of receiver 3, isn't he? Just get some targets, easy yards. We'll see how good Tyler Warren's going to be, but we've got Johnny Smith, so not massively concerned there. Maybe if you've got a good guard. You got a good guard?
We've got the best guard in the league, Quentin Nelson.
Oh, of course, yeah, we'll take him. That's
And obviously, to flip it back to you boys, Ed and Nathan, who would you take from Miami?
Do you want to go first, Nathan? Or
yeah, I'll go first. I'll take the Enigma in A-Chain. The guy is an absolute. I mean, it's like watching Flash Gordon, but when he gets the ball, and I think Mike and Shane, it's just their dream, isn't it? Putting a player like that behind our offensive line, and again, the idea of Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson, and Devon A-Chain in 12-man packages. Good luck stopping that.
Good answer.
See, I'm going to be really, really boring with my answer and just look at where we've got some real weaknesses, I think, in the linebacker room. And I think you've got some pretty good ones if they're fit, if they're healthy, I should say, in Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb.
Yeah,
I know they've both had really bad injuries over the last couple of years, so I'm taking them as long as they're fully healthy. But one of those two guys to slot into our sort of linebacker room would be a dream, really. Not to say that you haven't got players elsewhere that could help the Colts. I just say I'm going to be boring and look at it with a sort of position of need as opposed to playing all-stars, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm not going to look at a position of need, and I'm going to completely not be sensible. I'm going to take Johnny Smith because I want to be greedy, and I want Tyler Warren.
I mean, he's holding out right now.
I'm going to say there's an outside chance you could get him.
That's a good pick.
But,
we wouldn't
not
pay his
what we can
money.
do.
If you won't pay him, we won't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll stay. I think that's much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
But just going back to your point, sorry, can I just on Ed's point real quick? One of the big positives for this year is Phillips and Chubb were our edges for last year, and a really good pair of edges, and then they were both out for the whole year. So last year we took Chop Robinson in the first round, whose second half of this year came on amazing, and he looks really good. And now if we can have the three of them healthy and either somehow play them at the same time between edge and outside linebacker, or just rotate 2 out of 3 of them, between them, Zach Sealer, who is our only good player last year at defensive tackle, and our first round pick this year, Kenneth Grant, between the 5 of them, that's amazing. And that's why hopefully our weak secondary won't be too bad, because we've got all our good players up front. So sorry, it's just a tangent, but that's like one of our main positives, I think, for this year. That's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah, I need to apologise, mate. So we're going to move on to AFC East power rankings, because we was going to do it symmetrically, but then Dave very kindly joined us on our show, so I thought it was only fair we did the AFC East. So I'm going to give you my 4 gentlemen, my team in 4th place, gentlemen. If anyone disagrees, feel free to tell me why I'm wrong. But 4th, I've got the New England Patriots, because we're Colts fans, and fuck the Patriots. They cheated at everything. They had the 2nd greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. Not quite better than Peyton, or even, you could even argue, Eli Manning. He didn't like the Mannings. They cheated, and Robert Kraft is a horrible human being. So, for the Patriots, anyone disagree?
Yeah, I've disagreed with that. Yeah.
You got the Jets. I'll take it.
Yeah, I went with the Jets in fourth. I mean, I've written like taglines just for us to, maybe save a bit of time. Worst owner in football, a new system, too many divas on the roster, in my opinion. And genuinely, if the Jets have a good year, how do you pay them all? How do you pay Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and probably re-sign Justin Fields if he's what everybody thinks he's going to be in the same off season? Like, it's impossible. They're going to blow up if they do well. And until that owner goes, Jets are going to keep being irrelevant and drafting horrendous quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I agree with Nathan. Although I agree with everything you said individually, Harrison.
Yeah.
In terms of like a fourth place, I would go Jets. As a Finns fan, obviously, the X applies to all three teams to me, so that's not a differentiator. And yeah, just saying. Although I must admit, I do think they might be better this year than last year. I do think Alan Glenn, the new head coach, is probably just going to stabilise things a little bit. Fields is not a good quarterback. He can run, but he can't pass. He can never hit his first read. They've got one receiver in Wilson. Defense is average. Sauce Gardner was massively overrated, and everyone saw that last year. He holds for fun. It's ridiculous. He got away with it his first year. He didn't last year. So I don't think they're going to be like a top 5 pick, but I will have them probably slightly below the Patriots.
Ed?
I've gone for the Patriots as well for different reasons to you, Harrison, but along similar lines. I mean, they've spent a lot of money. I mean, the positives for them is I do think Mike Vrabel's a good coach. I do think that he will sort them out. I just think this year might be 1 year too early. I was looking through the players they've brought in because they have spent a lot of money and they've definitely improved their offensive line, and they're obviously looking to protect Drake May. But I'm really sorry. I know he's been a great receiver, but I'm not having Stephon Diggs. He's going to be their main weapon going into this year, and I just don't think. And they brought in Matt Collins from Buffalo as well. Again, I mean, the guy's more famous walking around with no shoes on, isn't he? Than he is for really doing anything on the football field. Their schedule. I've written down on here. Apparently, they've got the third easiest schedule, although that's massively subjective because it's based on what teams did last year. So I think that's in their favour. But I think New England will be better than last year. I think they'll get more than 4 wins, which is what they got last year. But I still don't see them finishing above 4th place this year.
So just for reference, I don't know if you guys gamble at all, but obviously you get the season under-overs for each team. And I tend to pick some of my favourite lines per week season and pick a few unders-overs just to track. Patriots under-over is 8.5. So if you want a flutter, smash the under on that. I don't see how they're there 9 wins.
Yeah.
But ironically, Jets is 5.5, and I might actually go over for them and just assume both teams are going to get 6 or 7 wins. But Patriots under 8.5 seems like easy money if you ask me.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing then we are flipped for 3rd place. That me and Ed have New York, and you two have New England.
Yeah.
I don't.
Go on, Nathan. Go on, Nathan. I was going to say, you're all just being nice to me because I'm here. So come on, Nathan.
I have Miami in 3rd. I think, I mean, Dave said it better than I did, right? But I don't think you get in. I think the AFC is too good this year at the top end. I am going to unfortunately agree with the narrative of November and December football. I just don't think you get in this year. And that would be my reason for putting you 3rd.
Yeah. I mean, again, for what it's worth, the bookies have us and Patriots is the same under-over line, so you're kind of in the ballpark.
Wow. See? That makes me even happier about that prediction. I took a long time to land on Miami in 3. I really did. I spent like my whole dog walk this evening deliberating on it. So yeah. No offense meant at all.
Absolutely
I hope I'm wrong.
I do feel like, do you guys agree with what I said earlier, that I feel like of the division, we have the widest range between as low as we could finish and as high as we could finish? I feel like Patriots and Jets are going to have 6 to 8 wins each. We could have 4 wins or 11 wins. Like, we could, I honestly have no idea.
I could not agree more with you, because I've been flip-flopping on Miami all day, pretty much, for similar reasons. Because you're right, I could see you getting into the postseason quite comfortably, but I could see you blowing up as well. Like, there's just I don't think there's any middle ground with Miami this year as well. Like, do you know what I mean? I think it's either going to be you either win sort of 9, 10, 11 games, or you don't win more than 5. I really do see it going that way, and I find it really difficult. I'm finding because I'm actually a little bit higher on the Jets than you guys are. I don't think. I mean, obviously, I've got them third. I've got them finishing third. I've basically got the same division as last year, to be honest with you. But I actually think the Jets might be. I think the Jets might be slightly better than people are giving them credit for. What was it? The over under 5.5 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be over that all day with the Jets. I do think with Aaron Glenn going in there, he will sort an already quite good defense out and make it even better. I quite like Justin Fields. I do. I think he's a good quarterback, and he's an upgrade on a half-fit Aaron Rodgers who just stood there stinking the place out last year. And their offensive line is good as well. It's good. And I know what you said about paying everybody, Nathan, but they've got two. They've got one rookie at right tackle now in Membu, and Fashion, who was their first round pick last year. So that's their 2 tackles potentially locked down for the next few years without having to pay them, proper money. That will definitely help. They obviously drafted Mason Taylor, who's a player we talked about a lot in the offseason. The Colts were looking at tight end as another potential weapon. Appreciate he's a rookie. Rookies can go one or two ways. I know that. And Breece Hall, I think, is a good running back. If not great. So I think the Jets might be slightly better, but I still would have Miami finishing above them. Not just, but Miami's hard. That's the place this year.
So Jets at 3 for me, because I was sort of thinking along the same lines as Nathan, to be honest. I just what you'll come to learn about me, Dave, is I am a complete homer. The Colts are going 17-0. I don't care. I lean into the old rivalries. Being an Arsenal fan, United, Spurs, disgusting teams. So when it comes to the Colts, I just hate the Patriots, and anything to get one over on them, putting the Jets at 3, getting one over on them would be really nice. So moving on to 2 then. Now, I've just said I'm an extreme homer, so I'll let you go last, Dave, because I want you to be an extreme homer with your 2. I've got the Finns in 2, mainly because do we have quite a soft spot for Miami? I think I do. They're sort of like the Brentford of the Premier League. I don't think anyone hates them. You know what I mean? They seem like they play nice football, nice weather, like you say. When it gets a bit cold, are they a bit fair weather? Maybe, but I think Miami just holds a special place in my heart for that Prince halftime show more than anything. But Mike McDaniel, on a serious note, McDaniels is a very good coach. You got some good pieces there. It's just health. If you can stay healthy, I've got you at an easy 2, to be honest.
Ed, who you got?
Yeah, Miami as well. Like I just said, I do think it's boom or bust for Miami. I think you're in a very similar position to we are with the Colts this year, and you've alluded to it throughout about coach being on the hot seat. It's your strength of, again, I don't want the strength of schedule because nobody knows who anybody's going to be. But again, I looked at your schedule earlier and I'm just looking through it again now. There's no easy games in the NFL. That's not what but I don't think you've got a tough run around when you've got to go to Madrid, where you play the Bills, the Ravens, and the Commanders in a 3-week spell. That's going to be tough. And then you're on to your But apart from that, there's no real, when you look at it and you think you go for a patch where you've got to play, like maybe like the Chiefs, then the Bills, then like the Lions or something like that. There isn't really any of that in your schedule. So that kind of flipped it for me. Well, I think you're going to finish second. Tua, we've talked about Tua a lot, but Tua makes your offense work, doesn't he? And if Tua's healthy and on the pitch, and you can get a good year out of Tyreek, good run game. I'm looking at the depth you've got. A running back in particular is really, really strong. I love your defensive line. You mentioned that as well yourself. Again, when I looked at your roster, that is so strong. If you could just stop anybody passing against you, because that's going to be the issue with that secondary. I think the Dolphins can have a good year, and I definitely think it's a team that's capable of finishing second. But like you say, that could all blow up when you get spanked week 1 by the Colts, and you could fall apart after that. So who knows?
There's no coming back from that.
No, we don't win week 1. You'll be fine.
I want to be so wrong about this. I want to be clipped. I'm happy to become a meme. No, look, I've gone with New England in 2. I don't necessarily think they're going to win more games than Miami, and I genuinely have thought about this a lot this evening. I absolutely hate the Josh McDaniels hire. For me, that's a backward step in Drake May's development. I'm a big fan of May. I think he's going to be, a genuine QB in this league. Mike Vrabel will win them 3 games this year. He's a solid head coach. He's going to change the culture completely. Yeah. They've added, Ed touched on the additions, so I won't spend too much time on that. I've kind of fallen in love with Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams this off-season. I think Kyle Williams has the potential to shock everyone and be, in the conversation of maybe, top 5, top 10 rookies this year. As will Henderson. The guy's a Swiss Army knife. And, similar to Ed, we were mocking him to Indy in round 3 a lot this off-season. And the thing that everybody's missed out is they have Stephon Diggs's magic pink powder, which will put voodoo powder, voodoo powers on the other teams. So that's 10 wins in a bag there.
We will have to see about that.
Yeah, as Diggs said, New England are going to ask the league to call him daddy, and let's see how it goes.
And then finally, Dave, who have you got at 2?
So I'm slightly torn here. I know you want me to be a homer, and this beer I had was quite strong and it's now empty. However, if I back us to turn 1 and finish above the Bills, I feel like everyone might disregard everything I've said to this point. So I will put us 2, but making the playoffs with 10 or 11 wins and probably maybe 1 behind the Bills, like taking it close. I feel like that's a fair enough mix of homer and realistic as well.
Very sensible of you. So at 1, then I'm guessing we've all got Buffalo. I'll start. I'll keep it quick because I mean, as Colts fans, we can just. I think what it is with the Bills is they don't seem to be the evil superpower that the Chiefs are. There's a sort of picture that they did things. This might be different for you, Dave, because obviously they are rivals. But to us outside of your division, to me anyway, they seem like they're the good superpower, if that makes sense, and not the bad superpower. But that's it. They seem to do things right, whether they do or not. Whether you think I'm on a Colts podcast and they're talking about the Bills like they're the best ever. But yeah, what do you think, Dave?
No, I do see your point. It's a bit weird because their roster is basically Josh Allen. Like they don't actually have that many good offensive skill players. Lines are fine. Defensive line is fine. Secondary is actually quite weak. So they don't have the strongest roster. But between Josh Allen and presumably coaching, they just are a good team. You can't deny it. In terms of the fans, ridiculous table jumping aside. A couple of times, like when Tua's got injured and stuff, then you know how teams do the things where they like donate to that player's charity, and they're really good at stuff like that. So I'll give them a little bit of kudos for that. It hates me to say it, but Josh Allen actually seems like quite a nice guy outside of football. Unfortunately, I just have to hate him, so that's the rules. But he actually doesn't seem to be bad. But I do feel like they're there for the taking. We've actually, so we beat them in a really good match in either 22 or 23. Last year, one of Tua's first games back, we took them all the way to the wire. They won it with a 60-yard field goal in the last kick of the game. So actually, when both teams are fit and firing, we put up a good fight. And we played them week 2 this year. Oh no, week 3, sorry, at home. Oh no, it's away. Sorry, I thought it was at home. Anyway, we played them quite early, and I think like we've got a chance. Yeah, if you put us fit and firing against them, they'll be favourites, but it will be. I feel like we can put up a fight and probably split with them, all things being well.
Ed, Nathan, quickly on the Bills.
Yeah, I'll be super quick because just picking up what Dave said, I literally for the Bills, I just wrote down Josh Allen. That's it. I don't think there's much. That's it. He's such a differential. He's MVP.
Nathan.
Yeah, the Bills are my Super Bowl pick this year. Believe it or not, I know we haven't actually got to that part of the year yet, but yeah, they're my Super Bowl pick this year. I think they drafted well, especially round 1, bringing in Hairston.
Yes.
You know, and I think they outscored. Dave, you can help me here. I think they outscored their opponents by something stupid like 100+, like multiple times last year. Was that right?
Yeah, there's some. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but yeah, they dominated. Yeah, when they did it.
You know, they're one of like, and that's like a huge compliment because kind of all of us are saying all they are is Josh Allen, but they pretty much batter everyone they play. Yeah, I can't really put any better than that. I think Bills for the Super Bowl, anyone but Kansas City, full stop.
Wow.
Just before we end then, because you know we've been going 50 minutes now, nearly an hour. I just want to thank Dave. Thank you for joining us, for giving us your time. It's nice to get other fans on, and although we are Colts fans, we do like expanding into the community. We want other fans to come on. We want more people to come on and grow the AFC community because, let's be real, the AFC is where it's at. I won't name a single decent team in the NFC. So, Dave, like I say, just before we go, have you got a record for your Miami Dolphins this year?
Yeah, I will go 11-6. And then we win the wildcard playoff game versus you guys. There we go. You win your division, but then we beat you first round of the playoffs. I feel fair compromise.
I'll be happy to get to the playoffs.
I was going to say, have you noticed how we're all taking that straight away? Like,
yeah, I should have opened with that.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for joining me. Ed, Nathan, unless you have any more questions, I'll wrap up the show now. Just before we go, like I say, I want to thank Dave for joining me. And if you want to get one over on Buffalo fans, Dave, you can always remind them of the time that Jonathan Taylor scored 5 touchdowns on them and just make them go into a hissy fit about how they're the best team in the AFC. And could just say, yeah, Jonathan Taylor ran 5 on you, shut up.
Appreciate that.
Thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to the Southbound community. Thank you to Dave. And we'll probably catch up with Dave after week 1 when it's Colts 52, Miami 0. Goodbye.
I might have to dip out of that for a